The first live edition of the Four Corners podcast at Town Hall Grill in Chapel Hill starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
And that could make a difference. Lawson at the buzzer. Got it! Maybe not. Ty Lawson wins it at the buzzer.
Deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Gets the roll. Here we go. Page has it. Carolina down 1. 84-83. Page into the front court with 4 seconds. Page to the rim. Got it! He got it! 9/10 of a second to go. Inbounds. Washington gets it to Warren. His full court shot. No good. Marcus Page baby. Does it for the Tar Heels. Carolina wins it.
Don't force it if you're Goss.
Comes in. Blocked by Meeks. Buried up ahead to Jackson. And he tucks it down for the 5-point lead. Matthews off the mark. And this year the confetti is going to fall for North Carolina. They're not going to be denied this time. Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another live edition of the Four Corners podcast. We're broadcasting live from the Town Hall Grill located over in the Southern Village part of Chapel Hill. We are about 4.5 hours away from the greatest rivalry in sports, Duke and North Carolina, renewing itself in the Dean Dome. And we're here to preview that matchup. Of course, we were live with you on Thursday night. We went through and gave our official preview, but a lot has transpired since then. And we're here to talk about all of that. We're going to have some fun. We were at College Game Day earlier this morning.
Oh, yes.
We're going to talk about the updated bubble implications going into today's game for the Heels. There was a top 10 list that got a lot of reviews, I guess is what we could say, that Fox Sports put out yesterday. We kind of had some problems with. We want to discuss about that as well.
It's one of the worst lists I think I've ever seen in my life, to be real honest with you. It's a bad look.
And
it's a bad look.
That's saying something because we work in sports radio. We put a lot of lists together in the summertime.
Yes,
and most of those lists are not good. So we'll talk about that. Then, of course, we'll talk about the game. Because it's a big one. There's a lot on the line for both teams. Carolina, obviously the more desperate team. But I think something that has not been talked about enough coming into today's game is that Duke has to win an outright regular season ACC title. There's a scenario where if Duke loses, they could be the 3 seed next week in Charlotte.
Oh, keep saying it.
For as dominant as they've been, they could end up not winning an ACC regular season title tonight if Carolina can take care of business. So there's a lot on the line for both teams, but we are Carolina guys, and we'll focus more so on the Carolina side of things. First off, we just want to thank the nice folks here at Town Hall Grill for having us out and allowing us to broadcast live. This is a place where we frequent before every home game, whether it's football or basketball. This is where we come to eat.
That's right.
This is where we spend a lot of our times. They've got a great TV set. You can watch all the games, so you're caught up to date on all the action around the country. We took a chance and we shot an email and said, hey, we'd love to do this. And they were nice enough to say, hey, we'd love to have you. Even after they met us, they said, hey, we can't wait to have you back out here tomorrow and broadcast live. So
if the team shoots as good as we shot, I think we got a shot tonight. That's all I'm going to say, because we threw it out there. I got to be honest. I thought they would say, what are you, crazy? Especially with the turnaround. But the people here, they have been unbelievable. Getting us set up with all of this stuff, helping us out. Jesse, David, our guy Jimmy in there, they've been helping us out, getting everything set up, and they're really excited about it too. So I think this could be, hopefully, the start of maybe a partnership. Maybe that would be nice. But we really appreciate them just for letting us come out here and talk about this. And they're doing good stuff here. man. I mean, this is the food is amazing, but they're also raising awareness for autism, which is awesome. And tonight they've got their watch party that's going to be going on. They're going to be giving away a bunch of signed stuff as well through the NIL program. They're big donators to the NIL program. So this is going to be a really cool event going on out here.
Yeah, no, we had a chance to meet the owners last night, and he was wanting us to convey the message about, these people, they love Carolina. And we want to work with people that love Carolina because we're so passionate about the Heels, obviously with the work we do covering Carolina basketball and Tar Heel football. The work they do raising awareness for autism, it's personable, and you could feel that. It's not something that they say they want to do. Their actions back it up. They live out their mission statement. And then the gifts tonight. Signed RJ Davis, I think it's a jersey.
Yes.
You've got Hey Dude from Armando Baycott, signed basketballs. These are some of the best gifts in the world.
Right. Now, the thing is, you want to be here, and you got to stay for the whole game.
Yep.
But if you come down here, you stay. They got TVs all over this place. This is why we come here, because they got great TVs. They're going to put the game on every television in here. You come here with your party. It's got to be the full party. Our guy Jimmy wanted to make sure that we said that. It's got to be the full party. But if you come here with your group, you have a chance to win something that's signed by one of the greatest players in the history of the Tar Heel basketball program in RJ Davis, one of the greatest rebounders in program history in Armando Baycott. I mean, who doesn't like a pair of Hey Dudes? Now, the question is, would you wear them, though? I don't think you can. They're signed.
Yeah, no, they'd go on the shelf.
Yeah, but I mean, what a collection item that would be. So I think this is the place to be. Now, for us, we got to tell this story. We're going to be there.
Yeah.
We're going to be in the building. We thought, okay, we're going to be here, which is cool, man. We got 2 televisions right now in front of us right now, which is great. And we're taking in some of the great college basketball action right now. I mean, Kentucky, they are handling it. Are handling Missouri, which our guy Willie P will not be happy about. That's certainly,
if he's even watching, he's probably getting his board ready for tomorrow's FC match.
You know what? That's a good point, though. But we love our guy, okay? He's doing what he's got to do. But now he's probably got it on in the background. Now it's an 8-point game, though. I didn't even realize that. But we're going to tell you about what's going on with the bubble. I know Arkansas is playing right now. Look, I don't understand how that team is solidly in the field.
Yeah.
Are you with me? Like, you lost to South Carolina. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff going on here today. But the most important thing is come out here for that watch party because it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great time, a fun time, and hopefully this place is packed to the brim, cheering on Carolina to a much-needed victory. One more just behind-the-scenes story before we really get into the edition of the show. I left during our meal, our pre-show meal.
Okay.
And I told you I had to go to the bathroom. That was a lie. I was
please
actually trying to break into the spot where they keep all the awards that they're giving out tonight. Because, RJ Davis signed jersey. That speaks to me.
I knew it.
So we're still glad to be out here because they've caught me snooping back there trying to find the awards. But nonetheless, guys, come out here.
Oh, gosh.
It's going to be a lot of fun. They got a lot of great prizes. They're great people. And regardless, this is going to be a day to remember, I think, for Carolina basketball. I think
you're right.
You want to get a win. This team needs a win to solidify itself as an NCAA tournament team. And, I think this is a team that if they get into the tournament, man, I think they're going to make noise. They're going to justify being one of the at-large teams that really gets selected by the selection committee. But we're saying goodbye to an all-time great. And those emotions, I think, have definitely hit RJ. We had a chance to have him on the Mac and Bone show on Thursday morning. He joined game day this morning as well. Dare I say I'm more emotional about this game than RJ Davis is?
I think it's certainly possible, yeah. Which is maybe concerning, but I
was talking about it on Thursday, got choked up. When he walked out on the court for game day today, got choked up.
How about the moment with Hubert Davis, man? That was special.
And that's what separates, I think, Carolina from everywhere else. And look, there are places where these relationships are real. They are established. It's not 8 miles down the road. Those relationships are not as serious as they are here at Carolina. But you saw the photo that they put out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you could see the affection for one another. And that's what makes tonight's so much special because if you go out on a win against Duke on senior night, this will be a game that, when we're doing episode 5,328 of the pod and we're doing our 1,200th live show from the Town Hall Grill, like that would still be a game that we talk about. And we hope that's what happens tonight. We hope we get to talk about a game that we'll be talking about for years to come. We'll start, though, with our morning. College Game Day, live in Chapel Hill. Great 2-hour vehicle this morning. I thought Reese, Jay, Seth, and Jay Billis did a fantastic job after a lot of backlash. When they made it known that they were bringing Game Day to the second game of the rivalry.
Stupid.
There were a lot of SEC fans that just discovered college basketball was a sport, i.e. Missouri. They were upset that they weren't going to Columbia, Missouri for Missouri, Kentucky. A lot of people upset they weren't in Auburn, Alabama for the second matchup of that game, which will air at 2:30. But first off, I was going to say it was a fantastic crowd. It was a great crowd at the beginning. I thought, when we got in, we of course could not get into after 9 o'clock as we were general public people. It was very filled. I think there was a lot of energy. And then right about 9:45-ish, 9:50, and this isn't unique to today. This happens, when the game days at Duke for this game, and it happens when it's in Chapel Hill for this game. Man, the Duke fans showed up.
Right.
And they were to the right of where we were sitting. And you could almost make the argument they overtook the show. They were more loud, more vocal, a lot more disrespectful.
Stood the whole time.
I thought they were a lot more disrespectful of what was, in terms of what was going on in terms of being a part of a TV audience.
Right.
But they made their voices heard to the tune that for whatever reason, after, when Hubert Davis walked onto the floor, when R.J. Davis walked on the floor, when Bill Belichick was walked on the floor, the Duke crowd was mocking some Carolina greats, and our students never responded. And I think the biggest issue, man, they left. I don't know if 2 hours now is just too long to be a part of something, which is hope not the case because it's going to be at least a 2-hour game tonight. I don't know if the students were going to get their pregame activities underway.
Guys, you got all afternoon.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, you got all afternoon. If we really wanted to pregame, we could have pregamed in this amount of time. Like, it's not difficult. To me, I mean, the leaving was the most concerning part because when they cleared out, what ended up happening? The Duke fans who stayed in unison, most of them students, decided to fill in that student area. That's supposed to be the area that's taken over by you, that's controlled by you. And somehow it wasn't. I did not understand how that happened. And I mean, look, man, we've given praise to the student section a lot this year. None more than the game against NC State because they were the ones that were in the building. But, man, I'm sorry. Today was not good enough. You are getting your program disrespected constantly, and you had no reaction. We couldn't even get a Cooper Sucks chant.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. They were chanting about RJ. They were chanting about Hubert. Multiple guys yelling, and we can't get anything? Come on, man. You got to have more pride in your university. You got to have more pride. I get that Hubert Davis has been under scrutiny. We have scrutinized him. But at the same time, I think we all were sitting there kind of bewildered that they were doing that, and there was no response. That's my thing. And you don't have to stoop to the level that it was, what was it? Was it his final game in the Dean Dome where they chanted F you, Coach K?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't have to chant F Coach K or anything like that. You don't need to go that far. But I'm just saying there needs to be some sort of reaction. Something that was simple. While they were talking, RJ, Seth, and Hubert, there's a chant that starts going boring. Then they do a feature on the Duke Blue Devils with Cooper Flagg and Tyrese Proctor. Keep in mind, this is a taped segment.
Yep.
There's nothing. How is there no response? That's the perfect time. That was boring as hell. I was bored. I wanted to take a nap. Like that's all I'm asking for. Just some sort of response like that. It doesn't need to be over the top, but give me something. Give me some energy. Be a little upset that your team is being disrespected.
What I do think it shows mainly, it was more so I think from the Duke side during game day, and we're not going to make this the end all be all. But this idea and this notion that this rivalry is dead, that there's no energy, there's no fever, there's no hatred, could not be further from the truth. Yes, it's different. I can acknowledge that as someone that feels responsible, as a podcast host and a guy that works in sports talk radio, and have seen this rivalry be devalued. I feel like it's my place to be the caretaker of it because it means so much to me. I love this game. I love this game so much, but I can acknowledge that it's different. But that hatred is still there, and so I hope that tonight, when we make our way inside the Smith Center, Carolina fans show up and they show out because this team's playing at a real high level.
Mm-hmm.
6 straight wins. Carolina is peaking at the right time. They're going to need 21,750 people behind them tonight because that's how good Duke is. And so they're going to need an extra help or two. And, I know we'll be up to the task, but hopefully we perform better once we get inside the building for the game than what we did this morning during game day. Do want to note, though, and it sucks giving praise and honor to a Duke fan, but how about Jay Williams saying what needed to be said to open up the show? It wasn't even Jay Billis, the guy who has coined the phrase, "It always delivers." Now, it was Jay Williams who came to a defense of this rivalry because ESPN caught a lot of smack. It's so much to the point when we did a segment on it this week at WFNZ. It wasn't, Dan Wolken was the guy that got a lot of attention for the tweet.
Why do we have to stop giving him attention? Because no offense, the dude's a moron. He has been for years. He tweets stuff. I don't even think he believes most of the stuff that he tweets. Like, I think he does it because he knows it's going to get a reaction. And it worked. I'm going to tell you, it worked because we talked about it when we were previewing the edition of the podcast. But, I mean, it's insane to me that people think that they made the wrong decision today. And, I mean, again, we were getting on the environment from a Tar Heels perspective, but I don't think it matters. I think this rivalry is there is still fire in this rivalry. Anyone that doesn't think so, I just don't know how to help you. And this is coming from guys whose team won the game that they said killed this rivalry.
Yeah.
And guess what? That is still a card that you can always play. I'm not saying that needs to be the end-all, be-all. That might be what's ultimately, in some respects, maybe hurting the mindset that certain guys are taking into this game. I don't think it is. I don't think Carolina's going to say, hey, like RJ Davis is not saying, well, we beat them when it mattered the most. But as a fan, you can still have that card where if for some reason you do get swept this year, you could say, well, guess what? We won the one that mattered the most out of the whole thing. So that's the thing that you have. But it doesn't mean that the rivalry has gone away. It means that the rivalry is in a new chapter. And we knew that was going to happen anyways, regardless of if they met or not, because Coach K was leaving.
Yeah, no, this is a rivalry that's still evolving. Under 2 head coaches that I think John Shire, there's less questions about him, but Hubert Davis has proven he can take Carolina to the top. He's taken them to a title game. He's taken them to a 1 seed. I'll say this. I know how it felt when we lost to them 3 weeks ago. It felt as bad as getting dumped by the same woman 3 times. That actually happened. So I don't want to feel that pain again. I don't want to feel that feeling again.
Well, just don't get back with her. You're talking about the game. No,
I
got you.
And Seth Trimble said it this morning when he was on set. He said, dude, they whooped us. So now it's get back time. And, I think this is a Carolina team that obviously they're playing at a high level, but I think the biggest difference with where this team is right now and where they were in the first matchup, man, there's a belief that they can win this game. They need to win the game, and they know that. That team a month ago didn't believe they could go into Cameron and win. When they won in 2022, that group had gotten to a point where they believed they could win the game.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that they fed off of the fact that everybody was still talking about Duke. Everybody thought that the Blue Devils are the team to beat. There's no way that Carolina's finding a way to upset this apple cart. They're going to have all these guys in attendance. And that's the thing. If I'm Hubert Davis, I'm saying to these guys, remember 2022 when you were being disrespected like that? Guys, we went and won that game in a more difficult place. We had to win that game in their building.
Right.
You're in your home building. You're going to have your fans behind you. And we've been to a few games already this year. The games that we've been to, the environments have been really, really good. So even with, what we said about game day, man, when it comes to this game, Tar Heel fans are going to show up. So the environment is going to be behind you. That should allow this team to thrive. And the thing that's also different is, yes, I think I have mentioned it so much. Confidence is huge when it comes to this group, because we've seen as they've gotten more confident, it's allowed them to do the things that we thought they were going to be able to do this season. But also, you're starting to see leadership, because they asked Seth right out after the Clemson game, you spoke up.
Yep.
Why did you feel like you needed to speak up at that time? We couldn't hear because there were a bunch of chants going on at that time, and apparently not enough chants going on from the Tar Heel fans. But I mean, I think he is the guy that's now become the leader of this team. We thought maybe it would be RJ, and Hubert said it again today, and this is still something that does concern me. He said this is the quietest group that we've had. But there's one guy that I've seen here recently that started to step up and be more vocal and start chatting a little bit more. Like when he did it in the game against NC State, I think we all kind of said to ourselves, he says something to Dontrez Styles. I think we all said to ourselves at that time, okay, that's Dontrez Styles. Maybe there's some history there, whatever. But we've seen it every game since. We've seen what we saw from Ingram, what we saw from Cormac Ryan last year. That was a difference. They had a little bit of dog in them, and they wanted to let people know that they were there, even if they weren't performing well. So I think he's a guy that deserves a ton of credit for stepping up and being that leader.
He's become the vocal leader that matches. RJ Davis is a leader, but he leads by example. And I've said it, and I've said it for his entire 5 years. If Carolina could ever get 5 guys to play with his heart, they'd win 99% of the games, because I've watched this program play every single game since 2007. I don't know how many guys I can count on one hand that play harder than RJ Davis. He's a lead by example guy, and you need those guys. But you also need a guy that when someone screws up, someone goes, "Hey, what the hell is that?"
An extension of the coach.
And that's what Seth Trimble has evolved into. I think he was there. You go back to Malley, man. When he made the big shots against Michigan State, he was a vocal guy then. But because Carolina lost, you're not as confident in leading when you're losing as opposed to when you're winning. What happened after Clemson was, I think, what we all wanted to hear, and I said it at the time. These were all great words, but put the words into action. And those words were that it was embarrassing that they play at a place as special as Carolina, and he effectively said we quit against the Clemson Tigers, a school that's having a fantastic season. Cannot take
back-to-back fantastic
cannot take away with what they've done.
Yeah,
that is a football school that ran you off the gym. That's embarrassing. And so, but I think that ignited him confident to say going into that week of practice, no matter what, man, we're going to go down and we're going to go down fighting. And
well, it goes back to what he said in the preseason, and you brought it up. North Carolina's here. What you going to do about it? And they didn't play with that bravado for most of the year. Now, I mean, it looks like they are playing with that bravado. Maybe that's just and this is the thing that everybody's going to say, and we heard it again from one of the Duke fans yelled it out during game day this morning. They played nobody. Well, first of all, neither is Duke, because guess what? Nobody plays anybody. This is the ACC. The ACC is terrible. The one team that you guys played was Clemson, and you lost to them. So, yeah, nobody's playing anybody. But I think that just momentum is a big part of it. And both of these teams are coming in with that momentum. But, yeah, I'm hoping that, for Carolina, it's just we wanted to get to the point early in the year. It was safe to say this group was mentally weak. When they would get down, it would snowball on them. They had games where they would fight back, but then you got to that middle portion of the season where things started going wrong against Duke. Things started going wrong in that game against Clemson, and they rolled over. Now, I mean, look, maybe it's just me, and there are a lot of people. I've been told by a lot of people, including Tar Heel fans, that they think we're going to get blown out tonight. I don't see this team rolling over like that. I can't. I don't. I don't care that it's been against lesser opponents. They've shown me something here. They've shown me fight.
Well, and the biggest reason why it's okay to believe that Carolina A can and will win this game, or B at least compete like the way that you normally see them compete, has been the biggest difference in ACC results. Yes, in their 6-game winning streak, they are beating the crap out of these teams. But that wasn't the case in their first 7 ACC wins. Their first handful of ACC wins, you're grinding out wins against Georgia Tech at home, having to get a 4-point play at Notre Dame. Jalen Washington, who now is coming off the bench, was making a game-winning dunk and a game-sealing block at NC State. Man, Carolina was barely getting by.
Yep.
And now they're blowing teams out. They're controlling the opponents. They're going on game-changing runs, which they'll have to do tonight if they want to come out victorious. It doesn't look the same now as it did. If Carolina would have done what they've done the last 6 games all year long in ACC play, maybe you do have some hesitancy. That's not the case, though. Like, you have seen this team in the last 3 weeks blossom and play to their potential. This is what I thought I was going to see back in October.
Yeah.
When I was downright giddy about this team. When I was talking big talk about winning an ACC regular season title.
Yeah, that happened.
Being a 1 or 2 seed.
Yep.
Going back to the Final Four, winning a national championship. This is a level of basketball that I thought they were going to play from start to finish. We just got to hope that it's not too late. And that's where we'll transition now into the bubble.
Here we go.
And look, we got a bunch of different guys that have put together their NCAA tournament standing for Carolina that we'll run through here really quickly. We'll start with the guy, Joe Lenardi, the guy that does it for ESPN. He has Carolina not only first 4 out, but they are their first. UNC is their first team out of the tournament. Jerry Palm, who does a great job for CBS Sports, he has Carolina, of course, among the first 4 out.
Right.
But the second team out of the field of 68, Mike DeCourcy, does a great job for Fox Sports. Carolina, first 4 out. Third team out of the field of 68. Speaking of the field of 68, their bracketology group has Carolina, first 4 out. Second team out of the field. Kerry Miller, who does a tremendous job for the Bleacher Report, has Carolina, first 4 out. Third team out of the field. And then JBR Bracketology, a group that's really gotten a lot of notoriety this year on social media. Carolina, first 4 out, first team out of the field.
Yep.
Not a surprise that all these guys have Carolina on the outside looking in, but they do have some different variations of where they think Carolina stands in that pecking order.
Yeah, they do. And with Kerry Miller, the thing about him is, or her, I think it might be, I'm pretty sure it's a him though. Kerry, he has them as the third team out. That was earlier in the week. I think that was before Carolina played midweek. So I think that's something that could certainly change. But I mean, look, man, I think this team, everybody's got them in the same position now. And when you ask, what is the reason that they are not in the tournament field right now? Everybody says the same thing, man. It's because they don't have the quad 1 wins. The quad 1 wins, and I think there's something else that's holding them back here. But let's just focus on the quad 1 stuff right now. I know people are angry about it. They think it's a flawed statistic and everything like that. Quad 1 is basically you against tournament teams.
Yep.
That's pretty much what it is, because it's top 30 at home. Top 30 at home, top 75 on the road. So there's a lot of room on the road. There's a lot of room in neutral site too, because it's top 50. And we've talked about it. One of the scenarios that could be on the table for Carolina is if they go to Charlotte and if they play SMU. That's a team that right now is still inside of the top 50. So that could be your other quad 1 victory.
Yep.
But there are some people that think that might not even be enough, because you have to beat a certain quad 1 team, because Carolina, they haven't had a ton of opportunities to do it. And when they did have opportunities, they were unable to do it. One thing that I did not like it is what it is. Jay Billis brings up the fact that Carolina lost a lot of those games close in quad 1, and the crowd cheered. Have we really fallen that far that we're cheering about the fact that that's right? Hey, We lost those games, but we lost them close.
Well,
we got to get to a point where it's not where we're not in that situation. That's the bigger picture of it. But I mean,
my only defense of that is that what's helping Carolina really be in the position they are in as a team that's on the bubble is the fact that they played as tough a non-conference schedule of any teams on the bubble, and the fact they weren't blown out. Like, if we're talking about blowout defeats where they're losing by double-digit games every single time, I don't think this is a conversation, whereas Carolina is firmly a bubble team. But you're talking about you were up 4 at Kansas with 2.5 to go, up 4 against Florida, 2.5 to go.
Those are the two that I think hurt the
Michigan
most.
State, you lost that game in overtime.
Yep.
I'm with you. This is not horseshoes or hand grenades. This is not a almost program. This is not NC State. Like, you expect to A, play in those games, and you B, expect to win those games. That's what you're expected to do at the University of North Carolina. I do think, though, that the fact that they were as competitive as they were does help them in this case.
I do. My thing is, I didn't think that was a cheer-worthy moment. I don't think that that's something you should be pounding your chest over. To me, that's something that if you want to make that part of your argument, you can. You can make that part of your argument. I think, honestly, the big thing that you want as a Tar Heel fan is to just find a way to win today, and you're in. But I mean, if it doesn't happen, and if you beat SMU and you somehow slip into the field, I mean, I'm not necessarily pounding my chest. I'm not going to apologize, though. That's the key. Is if that's how you slip into the NCAA tournament, then that's fine. That's fine. But don't pound your chest over it, because that should not be where this program is at.
Yeah, and look, I'm not of the opinion that it's not as important as much as who Carolina beats, as long as they get that second quad 1 win. I think as long as they get to 2,
I agree with that.
Their resume is good enough for them to be in that large team. And because we'll look at the reason why. Look at and Billis brought this up this morning on game day. We'll run through some of the metrics that the selection committee, that when they make these decisions, will not have Bubba Cunningham in the room. He'll be out of the room when they bring up North Carolina.
Which makes sense,
but
yeah.
This is what the selection committee will be looking at. Their net ranking, 38, highest of any team right now on the bubble. Their average opponent in terms of net is 100. That's because the ACC is garbage. Their average net win is 139. Their average net loss is 28. Like, so you have the Stanford loss, which is your quote-unquote
that's the one that's
bad loss.
That's the one that's
But here's the
you.
thing. If Carolina wins that game, and let's say they're 14-5 entering the game tonight in conference play, and they're 21-10, guess what? They're still on the bubble, in my opinion.
They are, but the thing is, if they don't lose that game, they are probably projected to be in the field, because I went through and looked at a lot of these resumes, and the one thing that is different for Carolina is that quad 3 loss. And that's what sucks, is that can't change. Stanford's not going to get high enough. What really hurts about that game, if you lost it on the road, it's one thing.
Yep.
You lost at home.
Yep.
And you had a chance to win that game.
Oh, yeah.
So that, if you're looking back at games that have Carolina in the position that they're in, it's Stanford, it's Florida, and it's Kansas. I think, and Michigan State, because that game did go to overtime. Those were your opportunities, and you couldn't find a way to take advantage. Even if you take advantage of one, you're in the field.
And the one that's going to really stick in my craw the most if Carolina misses will be that Florida game, because you were up 4, and it was a neutral environment. But that game was in Charlotte. We were in the building.
Basically, home environment.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
And I said it to you. I whispered it to you when RJ Davis missed the free throw. It felt like a sign of bad things to come. And a big reason why Carolina lost the game that night was a big reason why they've lost a lot of those games. That version of Carolina could not rebound. And if you haven't watched Florida play, man, they play basically the way Roy Williams used to play. 2 bigs. They've got guards. They're big. They're old. I think they are the 3rd best team in the country. I think they are a legitimate threat to make the Final Four, win the national championship. If Carolina has a win over them, then they don't have to win tonight like they need to to make the field. Some other parts of their resume that I do think are playing into their strength as to why they find themselves in the position that they are. Their net strength of schedule, 48th. And that, again, that's considering with how bad this league is. If the ACC was what the ACC is typically, that number would be even higher.
Even if it was last year,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be better.
And KenPom, a metric I use a lot here on the podcast, they're 37th. According to ESPN's BPI, they're 27th. KPI, they're 50. And Bart Torvik, they are 41st. So they have metrics that suggest that they are worthy of being in the discussion.
Yep.
We know how big tonight is. We know how important tonight is. They have a 64% chance to make the NCAA tournament if they win tonight. To me, that number is too low.
Which is crazy.
If Carolina wins, barring a loss to a double-digit seed next week in the ACC tournament, Carolina would be in the field.
Right, and I don't even know if it would be possible. If Carolina wins tonight,
they're the 4 seed.
They're the 4 seed. And so if that happens,
you'd lose to the 13.
Well, yeah,
you'd have to the 12.
12 or the 13 would have to advance. And right now, if I'm thinking correctly, that is Virginia. It is going to be Virginia Tech. And I'm trying to think of the other teams that are even like eligible to be in that spot. Notre Dame, I think, might be able to be in that spot. Those are teams you should not lose to. The way this team's playing here recently, I don't think they end up losing to those teams. And I don't think those teams are going to get by either SMU or Wake Forest, no matter who ends up in that spot. I don't see it. So I think regardless, you will be playing a team that now, I will say, if you win this game, if you're going to lose to either one of those teams in that first game of the ACC tournament, I would rather it be SMU. Because Wake Forest, the metrics on Wake Forest are horrible. And that was even before they lost to State. They lost to Florida State. That team is just, their metrics have been bad all year long. So that's one that you want to try to avoid. But I think you're right. I know there's some people that are saying they have to go and do damage in the ACC tournament, even if they win tonight. I don't think those people know what they're talking about. When you have the metrics that you have and you've played who you've played, I think you would put this team in if they beat the Duke Blue Devils tonight.
And I think and it's not saying that it's not possible. It would just be hard to think that Carolina wins a game tonight of this magnitude, and then they lay an egg in the first game of the ACC tournament in its backyard.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not impossible. We've seen it happen before with teams that have won a big rivalry game. They go to their conference tournament, and that does not carry over. But I just think, like, if Carolina wins tonight, what's it going to do for their confidence? It's going to take it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I think it'd be like 22.
Yeah, where you won your first game, lost your second game. And let's make no mistake about it. I value winning the ACC tournament in some years. There are some, like last year when we got to the final and that team in red was there, yeah, by God, I wanted to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, when I first got into college basketball, and I knew how important the ACC tournament was, okay, I wanted to win it. Like when Carolina lost to Florida State in the final in 12, and they lost in 13 in the final to, I think that was your loss to Miami. Those losses hurt, but like as you grow up and you age and you evolve, I don't value winning that tournament as much as it meant in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, when you basically had to win to secure yourself a spot in the NCAA tournament. But if Carolina wins tonight, we will not write out this team making a run next week. And if they make a run next week, not only do they solidify themselves, they improve their seeding for the NCAA tournament, which I'm of the opinion that if this team makes the field, I'm not going to go on record and say they're going to the Final Four. I'm not going to go on record and say they're going to play for the national championship. I would go as far as to say they'd be a second weekend of the tournament type of team, because how many teams in the country right now are playing better than Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is you go back to like 2016. That was a year where that team needed to make the run that they made.
And that was prime Tony Bennett, Virginia. Like, oh yeah, I wanted that one. I wanted to win that ACC tournament.
Definitely. And so I think that yeah, regardless of what happens in this game, I think you want to go there and do some damage. But you're right. For the most part, we don't necessarily value that. But, I mean, hell, they talked about it today on game day. They said in the SEC, how many teams in the SEC really want to win the SEC championship?
Yep.
Because if you win it, if you go through that tournament and you go all the way, your guys are going to be exhausted by the time that you get to the NCAA tournament. This is not one of those years for Carolina. I feel like momentum is important, and that's why we have to feel it out. You got to remember, we are guys that grew up with Roy Williams as our head coach. Roy did not value the ACC tournament over the ACC regular season title.
Right.
That was the most important thing to him. So naturally, when we hear that, we're going to say, you know what? We're buying into what this guy's saying. So, yeah, we don't value it nearly as much. But there are certain years where it really does matter. And for this team, if you could improve your seeding, and here's the thing, if they lose tonight, you're going to have no choice but to make a little bit of a run there. So I think that's going to be important that they get in that mindset. The good news is regardless, they are not going to have to play on Tuesday. It's not like they're that far out. Not like, you go back to the COVID year in 2020. Remember, that team was a double-digit seed in the ACC tournament. Regardless, you're going to be anywhere from a 4 to a 6 seed. But you're going to have at least the one day that you'll be off. So Wednesday would be the earliest that you would have to play. We're hoping that you can get to Thursday because we're hoping for a win tonight. But regardless, I think even that little bit of time is plenty for this team to be able to reset and make a run. And when it comes to like the bubble, I know there are teams where there are a lot of quad one victories for certain teams. Take Oklahoma, for example, because every game that they play is basically a quad one game. Are we really sitting here and saying to ourselves that Oklahoma is a team that deserves to be in the NCAA tournament? Because I'm not. I'm sorry. You have played a lot of great opponents, but you have been picked apart in your conference. And if you lose tonight to Texas, how in the world are they putting that team in? I don't even, and I'm going to tell you right now, don't even get me started on Texas and Arkansas. Those two teams, you should be completely eliminated. You got blown out by South Carolina. You are not a tournament team. Well, I'm sorry. You're not. South Carolina is horrible.
I think when you look at Oklahoma, precedent comes into play here. You're talking about a team that I believe is 5-12, 6-12 in the SEC. I don't remember if the SEC has moved to the 20-game conference schedule model just yet. They're well below 500. They could even win today against Texas, win the SEC tournament, and the number of wins would not take them to at least a 500 mark in conference play. Do you want to reward a team for going 6-12 in conference play with a spot in the tournament? That's a dangerous precedent to set.
Yep.
On the flip side, you look at where Carolina is 1-10 in quad one, and as Kevin Brown told us, no team with one quad one win has ever made the tournament as an at-large qualifier. So there's that precedent, although I do think Carolina's non-con would really boost them over. Like what Oklahoma's in the position of where they are right now. Yes, because they've got some wins in the SEC, but they are proof of how you game the net. You play nobody in November.
Yep.
No, and now granted they did beat Michigan in December at the Jumpman Invitational, but you take
you know who else beat Michigan? Wake Forest.
So did Arkansas.
Yeah. So, I mean, once you start to stack some of those wins up, how great really is that win? I get it, man. Michigan turned themselves around. But that's the thing. We can play that game where they can say, oh, teams, that had a great start early in the season and then fell off towards the end, we're still going to put them in the field. Well, the thing is you got to realize that teams adjust throughout the year. Like, we've gotten to a point now, like that's what we're hoping they also sort of take into account, is that Carolina's playing a lot better than they were earlier in the season. This is a different team that's playing right now.
Yep. It's
the same thing for Michigan. That team got better as the year went along. Look at all the transfers that they had to welcome in. Of course they could have it was understandable that they got off to a slow start. So, yeah, they did beat Michigan, but is that really the same Michigan team that we're seeing right now? I don't think so.
No, that answer is no. So I think that's what you look at with Oklahoma. Xavier, for me, Carolina is metrically better than Xavier in every form or fashion. The Big East is better than the ACC. I don't know by how much.
Jeez, I would say barely.
The Big
It
East
ain't
is
close.
not what the Big East was, I think, 2 years ago, where it maybe had reemerged with the arrival of UConn on the national scene as maybe the best or second best conference in the country. That's not been the case the past couple of years. The Texas one's really interesting. There's just this whole idea that Texas is a brand in college basketball. I was listening to my guys that do the Eye on College Basketball show, Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander, my two spirit animals. They're talking about
Interesting.
Rodney Terry coaching for his job and how that job would be more coveted than Indiana if that job were to become available.
Oh my God, stop!
Which I know how much money Texas has.
Come on,
I know they built a brand new facility, and I know Matthew McConaughey shows up for a handful of times. I don't understand this whole idea of willing Texas into the field. Arkansas, I'm a little bit more forgiving. And maybe I shouldn't be.
But here's the thing they lost to South Carolina even later than Texas did.
They did.
And Texas is that is a game that's being held against Texas.
And I'm not going as far as Seth Greenberg, who said, I think it was last week, that this is one of the best coaching jobs Calipari's ever done.
Oh, stop it.
That's obviously not true, because if that was the case, Arkansas would be a top 5 team in the country and coveting or trying to be a 1 seed in the field. But I'm a little bit more forgiving with them because they did play some teams in the non-con. They got some wins on their resume outside of what the SEC has offered them a chance to do. Do I get why they're as solidly in the field as they are? I don't. But I'm a little bit more forgiving with that team being a bubble team as opposed to the others. Let's make no mistake about it.
Here's my question about them. If they're coached by Dennis Gates,
no.
Are they in? No. So if they're not I don't care about John Calipari. What has he done in the tournament, by the way? Nothing.
Well,
recently. That's what I'm saying. You got to look at it recently, man. He hasn't done anything.
Well, let's just go ahead and say the quiet part out loud, because when we get the bracket next Sunday, you're going to hear these guys in their fancy suits say that they didn't put, when we see how certain teams are seated, it's allotted. They're going to deny that they don't want to project matchups, which is stupid. If you didn't want to project matchups, you would never see the field. The committee is hoping for a scenario where North Carolina and Arkansas play in Dayton. That's what the committee wants.
Oh yeah.
They want a first 4 game that can sell, like UCLA, Michigan State did when they met as 11 seeds, and that was the year that I think it was UCLA went on to the Final Four. I may have the year mistaken. That's what the committee is hoping happens.
Well, that's the only reason that Villanova is still on the bubble, is because they would want the matchup between Carolina and Villanova. Now, they're not going to make it.
No.
Unless they go
win
on
the Big East.
Yeah, they got to go on some magical run. And if they win the Big East, they're locked in anyway. Yep. So that really doesn't matter.
And they're not doing that.
No, they're not a good enough team. But you're right. That's why certain teams are on the bubble. It drives me insane that is a part of it. But, that's my thing, man. These SEC teams that have lost to South Carolina, they should not be in there. And Xavier drives me crazy, man. That's a team. They are in the field, according to Joe Lunardi, as of today. They're the last team in the field.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that if you're putting a team with one quad 1 win in the field, it's Xavier over Carolina?
I think
look at the schedule the teams have played.
The only justification is they played fewer quad 1 games than Carolina has.
And they don't have the quad 3 loss. That would be the only other argument.
But, I think, and also this is the evolution of how we do things. When I first got into college basketball and Selection Sunday became Basketball Christmas, the eye test was a big thing back then.
Yep.
And how teams had played the last month, the last 2 weeks, whatever, was something that was taken into account. Like if you had gotten hot and you put together the string of wins like Carolina has put together right now, or some other teams, you would probably feel really good about where you stood going into Selection Sunday. That's no longer as big of the process as it used to be, and I do hate that. Because there's no way, and I can say this objectively, as someone that watches this sport every single night from November until April, of all the teams that are vying for at-large berths in the tournament, Carolina is among the best teams in that department.
Yes.
And so I love all the analytics that are at the disposal of the committees, because I do think, data is important. And the people that track that data, they do a terrific job doing so. It should not be the end-all, be-all. It should not be what a computer model tells you.
Eye test has to matter.
We got to get back to where we're putting in the best, most deserving teams, not the teams that fit the formula, the model that you're saying they need to fit to compete in a bracket of 68.
Well, and someone says, to be fair, I think it's actually Ashton. He says, to be fair, Xavier has won 7 straight. That's fine. Carolina's won 6 straight. And let's be real honest. If you're comparing the teams that they've played, I mean, could you give the edge to Carolina? Like, who has Xavier beaten? That's really been great?
The win over Creighton, with the way that they beat Creighton, speaks
good
volumes.
Point.
I think what the play devil's advocate is, if you put Carolina in Xavier's position with the way they're playing, have they won? Do you think they win 7 straight games?
Probably.
And if you
believe so.
If you put Xavier in Carolina's position, does Xavier have 6 straight wins?
I think it's possible.
I would say that answer is yes as well. So, which is where now you go to the data, you go to you go to the nerds to help figure this stuff out. The nerds are the nerds when it comes to Carolina and Xavier. The guys with 4 glasses, they favor UNC.
Well, that's the thing. So, yeah, I think I don't know, man. It's going to be so tough, and it's why Carolina winning tonight, that solves all of these. All of that stuff's gone.
Yep.
If you win tonight, I think you're pretty solidly in the field. Like so let's project for, if they do win tonight, where do you think they're at? I think they're probably in the last 4 byes. Will they stay there? I'm not sure. If they don't do anything in Charlotte, I think they could then drop onto that last 4 in and could be in Dayton. But I think if they win tonight, they're probably a team that is in the field and would not have to go to Dayton.
Yeah, no, I think if Carolina wins tonight, and I'm projecting forward, I think I see them as a 10 seed on Selection Sunday.
Woo!
Because I think they would get maybe another win or 2
right.
In Charlotte that could improve their seed line. Because, and this is the most important thing about winning tonight, and you hope that Clemson and Louisville take care of business, you wouldn't see Duke again until the ACC tournament final. And I think Carolina on a neutral floor with Louisville, everyone forgets that was a 70-69 game at the under 4 timeout in the second half. Louisville finished the game on a 13-1 run. We know what happened at Clemson. That was the first game of the bigger lineup. That was Jalen Withers' first start. Drake Powell had not yet been reinserted into the starting lineup. I do not think Clemson is 20 points better than UNC.
Well, because, I mean, the other thing.
So what I'm saying is that I think if Carolina wins tonight and Duke ends up as that 3 seed in Charlotte, I think Carolina would play in the ACC tournament final.
Yeah, because, I mean, with Clemson, like, are you expecting – I mean, Locken's a heck of a player. Don't get it wrong. I'm not saying that he wouldn't have a successful game. Are you thinking he's doing what he did in that first half again? That team, I mean.
No, because he only made 12 threes all year entering the game and made 4 in the first half.
That's the thing. So, I mean, I think that's what you're banking on if you're Carolina, if you can get that matchup. And that's why I said, one way or the other, I think if you win tonight, then you want to be that 4 seed. You want, and we're imagining, I mean, Clemson's got to play Virginia Tech. They should be able to win that game.
Yes.
Even if that result happens. And Louisville loses. Who are they playing? Stanford, I think, today. And they don't have Rain Smith, so who knows? Something funky could happen. We know you can't overlook Stanford. Even if Clemson just beats Virginia Tech, Duke's the 2 seed. You don't have to play them until the final.
Yep.
So that's the scenario that you're really hoping plays out. The other scenario is if you lose tonight, you want to go all the way down to the 6 seed. Because then you would get that matchup between either Clemson or Louisville. And I think either one of them, you're going to have a heck of a shot against, right. I think, the way the team is playing right now. So, that's the thing. We got to figure out what ends up happening tonight. And I think we got to start taking a look at this game because, man, this thing's going to be amazing, I think.
Yeah, let's go ahead and turn our attention to the Duke Blue Devils. That's the task at hand. We do want to thank all of you that are joining us live, whether you're on the Heel Tough Blog Facebook page, the Heel Tough Blog YouTube channel, or on my personal Twitter page at HTB_. Josh, if you are on Twitter, go ahead and give me a follow. We're broadcasting live at the Town Hall Grill, located in the Southern Village part
I'm
of
holding
Chapel
the
Hill.
computer, guys. Because we got some wind coming in here, I believe. If you're wondering why I'm leaning forward, I just got to protect the computer. But yeah, great event that they're going to be having out here tonight too. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Come out here, watch the Duke game, and you got a chance to win some signed stuff from some great UNC players.
Yep, including R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot. We're now closing in just 3.5 hours away from tip-off as the greatest rivalry in sports does renew itself tonight in the Deandom. We'll take a look really quickly at the scene set for this game. Duke won the first matchup back in Durham 87-70. We have forgotten about that as much as we possibly can. Carolina leads the all-time series 145-118. They won the first ever game back in 1920, 36-25. Carolina's largest margin of victory in the rivalry came in 1921. The Heels, they also hold the longest winning streak in the history of the rivalry. Carolina won 16 straight games from 1921 from 1928. They beat Duke's ass so often, so many times. They made them change their name from Trinity to Duke, and it still didn't result in anything of significance. In Chapel Hill, Carolina, 66-39 against Duke, but only 21-18 in the Smith Center. Today is March 8th. That means there have been times where the rivalry has been played this deep into the month of March in the regular season. Two notable moments come to mind. One of them you see in the intro video to the podcast, the Danny Green dunk over Greg Paulus.
Oh, yeah.
Which is already 17 years ago. I remember
we are getting old.
Because at the time I was just in middle school.
Young pup.
That was back when the game was tipped off at 9:00. Could not stay up till 11 to watch the game. I did the whole I'm going to sneak the game on my radio in the second half.
Yeah.
I remember that Woody Durham call as he dunked all over Greg Paulus as Carolina got a big win in Cameron. And then 27 years ago today, Carolina beat Duke 83-68 in the ACC tournament final. They scored the last 15 points of the game to emerge victorious in Greensboro. You look at Duke, they'll bring with them tonight a 27-3 record on the year. They are 18-1 in the league, but as we've talked about, they have to win tonight to secure an outright ACC regular season title and be the 1 seed next week in Charlotte for the ACC tournament. Away from Durham, they are 9-1 on the year. They have 3 players that average double-figure scoring, led by the guy that's going to be the National Player of the Year more than likely, Cooper Flagg, the sensational freshman. Con Knipple also averages double-figure scoring for them, along with Tyrese Proctor. When you look at Duke and how they match up and how they stack up, historically, in terms of dominance, this is the most dominant Duke team we've seen since 1999. That team would play for the national championship. They'd lose, though, to UConn. I know how good this team is. They're the biggest team in the country. Legitimate NBA size, legitimate NBA length.
Right.
But you look at their 3 losses, and 3 is not a big number, but, you lost on a neutral floor to Kentucky. I think Carolina's playing better than Kentucky is right now. A neutral floor to Kansas. I think Carolina's playing better than Kansas is right now.
Yes.
And on the road at Clemson, I won't go as far as that Carolina's playing better than Clemson, but no, this team is beatable. And I think that's important for people to remember. They get talked about as if they're this immovable object, that they're not capable of being beaten. Well, that's not true. They've been beaten 3 times. The biggest difference, I think, with what Carolina is right now, as opposed to when they met back in February, that first matchup, I may have been the only one who truly believed they could have won the game.
Right.
Our own locker room didn't believe they could win the game. I doubt our coaching staff at the time thought they could believe the game.
I picked us to win the game.
Not as much as I believed.
Oh, here we go.
I think Carolina's belief is it will never know how similar and how close it was to 2022. But that team, when they went into – and that year that game was in Durham, Coach K's final game, they thought they could win. They believed they could win. I think Carolina believes they can win this game just as much as they probably thought they could have won back in 2022. And the fact that nobody is giving them a chance, Williams, Greenberg both picked Duke to win the game earlier today on game day. Carolina's only given a 21% chance to win the game, according to ESPN's matchup predictor. I think all of that is going to fuel and motivate a team that is as confident as they've been all season long.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that this team, this Duke team is really, really good. One thing that I thought was interesting, and we've heard this notion the last few weeks, there are a lot of people that believe that this team, with all the talent that they got, they're not more talented than the team from 2022. That was the most talented all-around Duke team that they've had since the 90s. And yet that team came up short to Carolina in their own building and came up short to them in the Final Four. So that's the thing that I would be pointing to if I'm Hubert Davis too, is we think that this team is unbeatable. People are trying to tell us that this team is unbeatable. Well, they said the same thing about that 2022 team who arguably had more talent, and we found a way to win that game. So I think Carolina's got to look at this Duke team. And this is the thing that's amazing about this, is as you've said multiple times, Duke has to win this game in order to avoid potentially being the 3 seed in the conference tournament.
Yep.
There's pressure on them too. There's pressure on them to go 19-1 in conference play. Now, I would have preferred that they maybe had even found a way to beat Clemson, and they would come in here with the pressure of potentially going undefeated in conference play, because that would have been even more of something that could have nagged at them throughout the game. But yeah, I mean, I think the matchups are going to be really interesting, because who do you put on Cooper Flagg? First game, a lot of Seth Trimble on Cooper Flagg.
Yep.
And look, man, Seth Trimble has, came to Carolina as a really good defender. This year, I think he's kind of been up and down as a defender. I think he's had his moments where he's looked good, but he's had his moments where he's been cooked. Tonight, I think they are going to put Drake Powell on him a lot.
Yeah, they need to.
They do, because he's the best, this team's best defender, I believe. I know that with him off the floor, the defensive rating is supposedly higher, but I think his length is going to be able to bother Flagg. And of course, you're going to have to double at times. You need to find a way to effectively double team, because that's one thing that we've seen it a little bit during this stretch that when they've doubled, but it hasn't been nearly as often. They've done a much better job of being able to take care of the lane, not allow guys to drive the basket so easily. And it is allowed for you to not have to use a lot of that. Tonight, you're going up against the most athletic team that you've faced probably since that Clemson game.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. I do think if there's a formula for Carolina winning this game, and it's going to sound odd, I think the formula is make Cooper Flagg literally beat you by scoring the ball. Like, if he has to come in here and drop 35-40 for Duke to win.
Well, that's dangerous, because we said that with Maxine Renault, and he almost did. And he was one of the big reasons.
You go back to the first game, what really fueled Duke's blowout win was Con Knippel played at an extremely high level. When Tyrese Proctor plays to what his talent is and what it suggests, that's when Duke really climbs into that higher echelon of teams that are going to have Final Four bust, national title bust when they enter the NCAA tournament. Isaiah Evans has emerged as a guy that shoots the ball really well, really efficiently from behind the three-point line. We know that Malawach is a great rim scorer, just a guy that he throws it up, and that guy just goes and grabs it and throws it down.
But he's inconsistent. He's inconsistent. He's had moments where he's been really good offensively, and then he's had games where he's kind of disappeared. For me, I think you know what you're going to get from him on the glass. I don't think that's a question. I think for Carolina, you've got to find a way to take his scoring away. Proctor, the thing with Proctor, how healthy is Proctor? He just came back. So maybe he is close to 100%, but we don't really know. If those are the guys that end up having to beat you, see, to me, I want to try to take away Cooper Flagg and make someone else beat you, because I don't know if this team has enough scorers on it to beat you. But now his
facilitating is so good, though.
Oh, it is. It is. And there's no doubt about that.
The way he can control the game with his passing is what I think really separates him from like a Janai Broom and what really makes him this prospect he's going to be in the NBA draft.
Right.
His ability to control the game without scoring is what really makes Duke so great. Because in years past, they needed their freshmen to score 25, 30 points for them to be a team that could win a national championship. He doesn't have to do that for them to be great. But if you can make it a situation tonight where you're running Knipple off the 3-point line, you're making the game harder for Proctor. Isaiah Evans isn't a difference maker off the bench. Malawach isn't scoring at the rim the way that he's doing. And Flag feels like it's me versus the world. Then I think that's a situation where you can get him forcing the issue, which is what happened in all three of Duke's losses. When you look at what happened down the stretch against Kentucky, Kansas, and Clemson, it was this superstar kid who felt like, well, if I don't make a play, we're going to lose.
And to a certain extent, we watched a lot of the Wake game. It was the same thing. You saw a lot of that in that game as well. Now, he did enough, and part of it is that Wake wasn't a good enough team on the offensive end of the floor to be able to execute when they needed to. But you saw even in that game, when Wake makes the big run and takes the lead, it's because Cooper was having to do everything. So that is a heck of a point. And
thank you.
I mean, the most important thing for me is you cannot let them shoot as well as they did from the outside in that first game. That first game, that was what killed you during that run, was they were hitting every shot that they looked at from the outside, and it started stacking up on you so quickly. There was no way for you to be able to slow it down. Now, I mean, it's weird. You're almost a better perimeter team defensively with the guys that you have out there now, despite getting bigger. I don't know how that's possible, but Jalen Withers has made it better. And I mean, look, could you put him on Cooper Flag as well?
Yes, you have to.
Certainly. I think you've got to mix it up between the two of them, though. And you've got to also adjust to whatever Duke is throwing at you on the floor. Because there could be times where they're playing Malik Brown, who I think he's listed as questionable. We've been here before this year with Carolina. Every guy that comes back from injury, they want to come back against Carolina. If he is out there, they can put him on the floor with Malawach. And you've got the size. So that's something that I think Carolina's got to be aware of, and they may have to adjust how they match up against them. But I trust the combination of Withers and Powell to be able to frustrate Cooper Flag a little bit more than they did in that first game.
We need Jalen Withers to play the game of his life. We need him to be everything he's been during the winning streak, but even better, especially defensively, because Tuesday night he left a lot to be desired as a wing.
Sorry, he was going to have a bad game. Get it out.
As a wing defender. I loved how accountable Hubert Davis was. He took his butt out, put him on the bench.
Yep.
He re-entered the game and was impacting the game. He's going to have to make, I'd say, 2 3-pointers to really be that floor spacing threat that he's been for Carolina since he's been inserted into the starting lineup. But you need his size. You need his broad shoulders to be able to wear down Cooper Flag. And so it's going to be a mix and match game. But Withers has to be the best version of himself that he's been upon transferring in tonight for, I think, Carolina to really have a chance to, slow down Flag and really put themselves in a situation to have a chance to win the game with that final media timeout.
And defensively, the other thing, dude, Hubert, you got to use everything that you've got in your bag. We played zone this year. It's worked at times. Throw that out there if you have to. The biggest thing that you need to see in this game, and again, we're not saying you got to play this way for 40 minutes. We know that is something that is incredibly tiring. There are guys, I mean, you haven't practiced playing it for 40 minutes. It's not going to work if you try to do it the entire game. You got to throw the full court press.
Yep.
You've got to throw that at them. You didn't throw it at them in the first game. We didn't see it. Now, part of that was that they were blowing you out so bad by a certain point. What was the point in even trying to do that? In this game, I want to see it early, and I want to see it thrown out there relatively often. At least give them that look a few different times and make them respond to it. If they start hurting you off of it, okay, then you can get out of it. That's always an option. But you've got to at least bring that to the table and make them show you that they can score on it.
You look at this game from Carolina's perspective, the Heels enter with a 20-11 record. They are 13-6 in the ACC, having won 6 straight games. During the winning streak, Carolina is averaging 90.8 points per game. In the Smith Center, they are 11-2 on the year. Home wins over American, LaSalle, Georgia Tech, Campbell, SMU, California, Boston College, Pittsburgh, NC State, Virginia, and Miami. The two lone defeats at home against Alabama and Stanford. Their double-digit leading scorers feature R.J. Davis, Ian Jackson, and Seth Trimble. It is senior night for Carolina basketball, and that actually means something in this program as opposed to the program that will also be participating in tonight's activities. And this will be the last time we'll get to see R.J. Davis, Jalen Withers, Ty Claude play on the Smith Center floor. Not to take anything away from Withers, not to take anything away from Ty Claude. This is all about R.J. Davis.
Yeah.
This is all about, I think,
a program legend.
A fan base, a community having the opportunity to work, to really thank him. College athletics right now in a different space. Some people call it unhealthy. I just say it's different. We're navigating these players finally being allowed to make money, and a lot of people have a problem with that. I do not. I have no problem with these guys getting paid. I have no problem with these guys making money because what they do on the court, the money they make the university, they deserve a piece of the pie. But that's become so much a part of where you go and who you play for. That hasn't been the case for R.J. Davis. You're talking about a kid that in his 5 years endured playing through a pandemic, watched a Hall of Fame coach that recruited him retire rather abruptly because no one saw the retirement of Roy Williams coming. He then played for a first-time head coach that took him to the brink of a national championship. He then returned to finish the job, had some stuff personally that just affected what happened for the team on the court.
And then almost dragged them to the tournament.
And still stayed. And then last year when he had the best guard season individually and collectively a guard has ever had at Carolina, but because he didn't win a national championship, said, no, I've got a chance to play for a fifth year. I'm going to come back. We want to find what's right about college athletics in the modern era because so much of our time is spent whining and complaining about what's different, what's wrong, and all this type of stuff. R.J. Davis is Carolina basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Roy Williams would always tell that to the groups that he coached that won a national championship, that Phil Ford, Michael Jordan, Eric Montross, Sean May, Ray Felton, Ty Lawson, Tyler Hansborough, Joel Berry, Justin Jackson. Those guys are and were Carolina basketball. R.J. Davis is everything that I want in a player that plays here. He embodies loving Carolina, and he embodies what Hubert Davis demands of his players, is to have 2 feet invested. This isn't a guy that's just here to play basketball. This is a guy that loves the community, loves being a part of what this team does on the court and off the court. After he did his hit on game day, was there taking pictures and signing the jersey of a young fan who I'm extremely jealous of. Roy Williams would always talk about the pressure that exists coaching on senior night.
Right.
Because you don't want to send a guy out with a loss. I don't think Hubert Davis would admit that there's pressure, but it's going to be a hard pill to swallow. For me, I know individually, as someone that loves RJ as much as probably anybody in this fan base currently does right now, there's not a guy that deserves a moment like playing your final game in the Smith Center, beating Duke, and being able to be celebrated and honored the way that we would do him if he plays well and leads Carolina to a victory.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the program's all-time greats, and people have been trying to argue that he's not. And this is Carolina fans that are trying to argue that too.
And some host at WFNZ.
I mean, we've had the legacy conversation. We had it the other night on the podcast. This guy is one of the greatest scorers to ever wear this jersey. What he did last year is truly one of the special seasons that you're ever going to see. And so sending him out with a chance to at least play again in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I hate that we've gotten it here. And don't get it wrong, man. Part of this is on RJ as well, because during that stretch where Carolina was losing, RJ wasn't playing great. He wasn't taking over games. It's not like he was averaging, 25 a game and Carolina was still losing those games. But at the same time, this dude has laid it all out there for 5 years.
Yep.
He has been the heart and soul of this team while everybody else has left. And like Armando, there's nothing that you can do because Armando exhausted his eligibility. But Caleb Love left.
Yep.
Now, you could say whether or not he wanted to leave. It comes down to what you actually believe happened with that situation. But RJ is the guy that stayed through all of this. RJ never entered the transfer portal. And that's no shot at Seth Trimble. But he's a guy that's been here and stayed loyal and said, you know what? I'm putting my professional basketball career on hold. I don't know where he would have ended up. He probably would not be an NBA player right now. He'd probably be a G League player. But he'd still be a guy that I think would have a shot to eventually get to the NBA. I mean, look at what Armando's doing. He's going to be in the NBA at some point. When you are putting up 34 and 26 in a game, you're going to find your way to the NBA. That could have been RJ. And instead, he decided to stay here, to play another year, and to try to lead this team, a team that, by the way, I mean, I said it in the offseason. I don't know about you. I said in the offseason, they did not help him out enough. And yet, I think he still thought at the start of the year, I can take this team where we want to go. So this one would be huge for him tonight. If he could go out with this victory, that would feel special. And I think that's what you should want it to be as a Tar Heel fan. Like I said there better be an RJ Davis chant tonight at some point during the game. Whether it's after he gets introduced, if it's in the middle of the game, I'd like multiple, but there better be a chant of his name at some point. I can't believe there wasn't one this morning because he deserves that. So I'm interested to see, and I'm going to tell you right now, you said it. I listened to the interview that you guys did that morning. He sounds as motivated as anybody to win this game. There is a clear hatred, which is what you want.
Yep.
And I think he is incredibly motivated to find a way to beat this team, especially after what happened in that first game. I think he's taken that personally.
Yeah, I just hope he gets to have his moment tonight, man. Like, I mean, granted, I have a favorite player on every version of every team. This is 5 years of, I mean, loving a kid. I don't know if that's weird or whatever, but I mean, as a fan, you worried as you get older. Would you feel attached to college athletes? That was my biggest fear. As someone that fell in love with college basketball, became a teenager, then became an adult, and then got in the industry will I still feel that attachment to watching 18 to 22-year-olds play basketball? I can tell you that they still anger me as much as they did when I was a kid, when I was a teenager and a young adult. But when I watch him play, he reminds me of why I love the game, why I love the program, and that moment between Hubert and RJ this morning on game day is what separates us from everybody else. Because it's genuine, real affection and love. And Hubert Davis is motivated to make sure he sends out one of his all-time favorites with the win. So let's talk about how they do that. We're winding down out here live at the Town Hall Grill. We've enjoyed every bit of what we've done so far. Thank you to all of you that have joined us live, whether on the Heel Tough Blog Facebook page, the YouTube channel, or at my personal Twitter page at HTB_Josh. When I'll give our keys to the game before we reiterate our game picks for tonight. I said it Thursday, and I'll say it again. And I think you're going to see, and you can hear that message kind of be evoked today from RJ and Seth when they joined the game day set. Man, Carolina's got to punch first. You go back to what happened in Durham where they got bullied, they got punked, they got embarrassed. I mean, Duke jumped on top of them and just beat the piss out of them and really punched them down like you see a bully beating down, a undersized kid in high school or in middle school.
Boy,
Carolina's got
vivid. Oh,
Carolina's got to be the bully tonight first. And the biggest reason why is, man, they got to send a message. They got to be like Rocky and Rocky 4. They got to go out there and let it be known. We're not going to roll over. We're not going to play dead. You're not going to beat us the way you beat us in your gym. It's going to take 40 minutes. And they got to let it be known that they're willing to do whatever it takes for 40 minutes to win. That they're going to sacrifice their body to dive on the floor for a loose ball. They're going to stay in the lane and get run over by a 7'2" big man who's trying to take the ball to the basket. Those were things that Carolina did not do in the first matchup. And Jay Bill said it today, this game always requires your physical best. Carolina did not play their physical best in Durham. They did not play with their emotional best the first time in Durham. Very rare scenes, very rare sights that usually don't see when these two teams take the floor against one another. You can't win the game in the first 4 minutes, but you can send a message, and that's going to be what Carolina does by the first media timeout tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me when it comes to sending a message is just that you're going to be here to fight. Because in the first game, you basically showed them within the first 2-3 minutes of the game. Once we started turning the ball over, we're not going to be able to keep up with you. And that's something that I think this group is going to remember, and they're going to be ready to throw that first punch. That's the biggest thing, throwing the first punch, and you've got to be able to weather the storm as well. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that I think people have to realize in this game. If you think that Carolina is going to come out and do what Duke did to them in the first matchup, man, you're kidding yourselves. I'd love it. I'd love to see it.
I'd be unbearable if that happens.
But it's not going to happen because this team on the other side is just way too talented. So you've got to be ready to take some on the chin, but be able to counter on the way back. I think the difference this time around from these two, from the last time, is that this team's shooting a lot better. So you feel like at least on the offensive end of the floor, you're going to be able to counter. But as you said, and this is one of the things that you noticed really early in that game, they were dominant on the offensive glass early in that game. And you had the possession where Malawach pulls down 2 offensive rebounds, kicks out, I believe it was Flag, I want to say, knocks down the 3 from the outside. That was the moment. We said when we recapped that game, that was the moment you knew, oh, no, here we go. Because this team is getting overwhelmed by the size. I think they just have to show that nothing about this Duke team is going to overwhelm them in this game. And if they start faster offensively, I'd love to go into that under 16 timeout with a lead. That'd be great. But at least be even. At least be right there with them and show that, hey, we are just as good as you. Our talent may not be what yours is, but our fight is going to match what you guys are bringing. So I hope that's what we see from this group.
Yeah, look, there's going to be a lot of energy. There's going to be a palpable buzz that exists leading up to tip. You got to feed off of that. That's got to be a positive that gives you a little extra juice coming out of the tip right away. The second key to the game, I said compete on the glass. You're bigger now. You're out-rebounding opponents by double digits left and right, including a Florida State team in this winning streak that is the second biggest team that you've played all year long, of course, behind the Duke Blue Devils. The Noles not as athletically gifted, though, as Duke. But make no mistake about it, Carolina, pummeled them on the defensive glass. They got offensive rebounds, and they generated second chance points. It's going to be so important tonight, I think, for Carolina to generate second chance scoring opportunities if they want to win. I don't know if they're going to score 90 points in this game or not, but you got to at least get into the upper 70s, maybe the low 80s. Why Carolina is scoring the ball so potently right now is they're getting more than one shot per possession. The beginning of the year, the first 3 months, it was one and done, man. There was no presence on the offensive glass. Carolina was shooting and either making the shot or they were missing and having to go back down and play defense. But Withers has impacted the game on the offensive glass. Drake Powell has impacted the game on the offensive glass. Vin Allen Lubin is doing what Vin Allen Lubin was brought here to do. grab misses, and score.
Yep.
That's got to be present on the floor tonight. And on the other side, you've got to try to limit Duke as much as possible to one shot attempt. Because I don't think, even though Carolina is running at a high level right now and they're scoring in transition, it's not gonna deter Duke from going to get to the offensive glass. They're not gonna say, hey, if we miss, we got to get back and play defense. That's not going to be the case. So you've got to board up, you got to get your hip on somebody, and you've got to be willing to be physical with the opponent. They don't have to win the rebounding battle, but they've got to be a lot more competitive than they were against Duke a month ago.
And I find it hard to believe they won't be, because the way that this team is rebounding, I mean, that's the biggest thing that's different from the first time around with these two teams, is the switch in the starting lineup has given Carolina more size. And I think it was something that we doubted early in the season, because we thought that what the trade-off would be that it would be a more efficient offense. It's not. That four-guard lineup was not more efficient than what we're seeing right now, because those guys, Jalen Withers and Drake Powell, they're scoring the ball at an incredible rate for themselves. So I think in this game, now that you've got that size, you should be able to compete. I know that Florida State is not what Duke is. They're the second biggest team in the country, though. And Carolina dominated them on the glass.
Yep.
And they limited their second chance opportunities. If they can do that again in this game, then they've got a heck of a chance to win this one, because, I mean, that was one of the biggest issues, like I mentioned, with that team in the first half of that first matchup, was that Duke was getting every offensive rebound that they needed to continue to build on their run. You'd like to see Carolina be able to do that, and I think they will be able to get some of those offensive rebounds. The thing is it's about the right positioning. If you're smaller, you need to be in the right position and make them go over your back. Make them draw, make them take fouls if they're going to get loose balls. Be in the right position. We've seen it at times this year, but you also got to be aggressive, because we've seen at times this year guys have been in the right positions, but they get knocked out of the way. It's about the mindset. Rebounding is a mindset. Yes, size definitely is a factor. We saw that early in the season, but we also saw last year a guy in Harrison Ingram dominate in this game, dominate in these two games against Duke a year ago on the glass, because he just had more will than those guys. That's the type of effort that you need to bring today. And it's got to be everybody. This is one of those games where, man, Seth Trimble's rebounded really well all season. You need Seth Trimble to be a guy that can give you 6-7 boards in this game. Maybe RJ Davis chips in with 5. Those long rebounds are going to be important. Those are ones where you've got to be able to run them down, get on the floor, and make plays. So I think they're certainly able to do that because of what they've been doing recently rebounding-wise. That's the thing. We're talking about how Carolina's winning games by double digits. They're also out-rebounding teams by double digits. So that's not the expectation from me in this game. I don't think they're going to be able to do that, because I think Duke is way too good of a rebounding team. But if you can compete and find a way, if you find a way to even barely win it, that could be the difference in this game.
Last key to the game, when you heard Seth Greenberg talk about it so much, he changed his number of makes that Carolina has to make tonight. They've got to make perimeter shots. This has been the best three-point shooting team in the country over the last 6 weeks from a percentage, or the last 3 weeks over the 6-game win streak in terms of percentages. They're now making 10 threes per game on a regular basis. They've got to make perimeter shots. 10 to me is a high number against this Duke defense. I set the number at 8. Greenberg started at 13. He went to 12. By tip-off, it'll probably be down to 11. Make no mistake about it, though. RJ, Ian, Jay Witt, and Trimble got to put the ball in the basket. Yep. It's got to be diverse perimeter scoring. It cannot be a situation where Jackson's not hitting is not hitting perimeter shots. Heaven forbid, we cannot afford for Jalen Withers to lose his ability to help stretch the floor. Trimble is a guy that you need that on the floor, that ability, just because a team like Duke will be able to take away his dribble drive way more effectively than a school like Virginia Tech did earlier this week. You cannot have this game feeling like so many games felt like in November and December, where RJ felt the burden to where he had to take and he had to make every perimeter shot that the team would ultimately make in the game. So I don't know what the magic number is. I set the number at 8, but make no mistake about it. Carolina has to shoot the ball well from the outside to give themselves a chance.
Yeah, I think it's got to be double digits. I think if you get to 10, you feel comfortable with where you're at. And even if you get to 10, I believe that's because you're getting to the free throw line. That's another thing that you'd like Carolina to be able to do. But you go and you look at the stats from Duke. They're a team that does a really good job of defending without fouling.
Yep.
You want to know why? Their size bothers teams. That's the thing that Carolina's got to be aware of in this game. But something that Carolina has, and these guys are all starting to click now, is they have the ability to create space with their dribble. We've seen it with RJ. We've seen it with Ian Jackson. And now you're starting to see it with Seth Trimble. That's going to be important in this game because you might not have a lot of space. You've got to be able to hit tough shots from the outside. But you need, as you said, you need Withers to be able to space the floor. You need Drake Powell to be able to space the floor as well. And I mean, who knows, man? If he gets in this game, can Cade Tyson knock down a shot from the outside?
There's always an X factor, this unsung hero that shows up in this game.
That's right.
You want to feel better about your standing with the Carolina fan base, Cade Tyson? Knock down 2 threes and help Carolina win the game. I'll take back every negative thing I've said about you, and that's a lot.
And look, that's if he gets on the floor. I think he'll will play at some point because he's been playing a lot better in this game or in these games here recently. So, yeah, I think that's what you're hoping for is that these guys are locked in and ready to go. I have no question about RJ. I think he knows this is his final home game. He's going to be locked in and making those shots from the outside. But you need Seth Trimble to be able to knock down those shots like he was at points last year. I mean, remember, his shooting percentage was great a year ago. This year, I mean, it started out really great and then sort of tailed off just a little bit, but he's starting to find it again. This needs to be another good shooting night from him. And the key, the X factor to all of this, the guy that really has taken Carolina back to where they were early in conference play, at least in the middle of the week with some of the games that they were playing where they were blowing opponents out, is Ian Jackson.
Yep.
He's got to be able to make those shots from the outside tonight. If they can, and the way that they're shooting right now, I think after the other night, they are the best three-point shooting team in the country over the last 6 games. They will have a great opportunity to win this game. So hopefully we see the type of performance that we've been seeing from them from beyond the from the perimeter here in this game.
I know we picked the game on Thursday night when we made our previews, made those picks again on Friday during our various responsibilities at WFNZ, but this is a new show.
You may have missed it, yeah.
And this is a new audience, and we never made picks live on location. Carolina only given a 21% chance to win according to ESPN's matchup predictor. Who wins the game tonight and why?
I think Carolina wins this game, and I said it. I think that there is a hunger with this group. I think that the biggest thing that Carolina's got to be able to do that we didn't talk about is hold on to the basketball. And I think that, RJ, I think he'll have an efficient game. You're going to have turnovers, I think, from Elliot Cadeau. But the most important thing is taking care of the basketball, limiting the extra possessions that Duke can have. I think Carolina has done a better job of that during this recent stretch. I know they're coming off a game where they turn the ball over 13 times, but I think they take care of the basketball in this game, which allows them to get a lot of looks. And I think that RJ, I said it yesterday when I was asked about it. I think RJ goes for 25 or more points in this game. I think he's going to be motivated like we've pretty much never seen before from him, or at least we haven't seen it since last year. I think there's a big performance from him tonight. I think Ian Jackson plays really well in this game, and I love the way that Ben Allen Lubin has been playing lately. We talked about it in the last couple of games, how he has been such a big part of the turnaround for Carolina. I think he performs really well in this game as well. He gets some of those important offensive rebounds. He's efficient once again when he's pulling down those offensive rebounds. And I think Carolina has that scoring presence and size. I like the balance all around of this Carolina team right now. And I know Duke is great defensively. I think this is a high-scoring game. That's what Carolina wants to do, I think, in this game if they're going to win, because they've been better defensively, but they have let up points. I think Carolina wins this game 90-87 over the Duke Blue Devils.
You know, this is a program where the expectation, the standard is Final Four every single year. You're ultimately judged by, did you hang a banner or not? The second thing that goes into how you leave a legacy here is how you perform in this game. That's how much this game means, that it's win a national championship. How'd you perform against Duke? R.J. Davis has almost won a national championship, and that's a big part of his legacy. He's also performed rather well against Duke, but he has the chance to have one of those signature moments, a moment against Duke that we'll be talking about, you know, when we're 20, 30 years older than where we are right now, and we're still talking about Carolina basketball. If he plays at a high level and he leads Carolina to a victory, I think there's motivation on that end to make sure you send down a program legend all the right way. They know what's at stake. They know what's on the line in terms of wanting to get into the NCAA tournament, put on their dancing shoes, and try to make some noise in the NCAA tournament. I think what turns the tide, though, is me. And the presence of
Here we go.
being in the building. They're going to know there's a different edge in the building because there's going to be some short, fat, bald dude that has dreamed of going to this game since the 6th grade. That's going to be in attendance.
Can you contain yourself?
And
That's going to be
Hubert Davis is going to convey the message. Guys, we can't let this down. We can't let this guy down.
Okay.
Because this maniac is going to be in Charlotte next week, and he might confront y'all. So you want to win.
Boy, here we go again with the confronting people.
But before you have an incident in Charlotte where, you know, the media member is maybe, you know, verbally attacking college athletes and college basketball head coaches.
Excuse me, we got a question over here. Yeah, why do you hate me?
So, nah, I'm just joking.
Well, if we're doing that, I think we've got one thing. I'm going to step off camera here really quickly. We've got something else that has helped us during this winning streak, and that would be a special T-shirt that I am wearing tonight. So if we're going to do this, we got to pull out the actual T-shirt right here, the 1982 T-shirt. I think that could be the one that ends up helping us to win this game. Home Field, by the way, made this one. It's a replica of the title shirt. It's not the exact one. I think that could be the difference in this game.
You ever heard of a dryer?
Of a dryer? What do you mean?
That thing's more wrinkled than my grandma.
Well, I didn't wash it from the last time that I wore it. That was midweek. I didn't have a chance to wash it. So, oh, yeah.
It's March, baby. You got to do what you got to do this time of the year.
That's what I'm saying. Go where you go, do what you do. Well, we're going to the Dean Dome, and we're wearing the shirt.
Guys, y'all know there's no way on God's green earth I'm picking Duke. Carolina wins. RJ balls out. We secure a spot in the tournament. And then who knows what happens from there. I think this team is poised to give us a March to remember and salvage what felt like a lost season back in early February. That's going to wrap up our first ever live edition of the show
Hopefully
on the road here from Town Hall Grill. Depending on A, the result, and B, just timing in terms of getting out of the Smith Center, depends on when we'll talk to you next. If Carolina wins, guess what? We'll be back here at Town Hall Grill. We hope, depending on how we can make our way back from the Smith Center, to recap the game and talk about the game live again with you guys. If Carolina loses, those plans probably go down the window, go down the drain, mainly because there's going to be no one here. And the restaurant closes at 9 o'clock. So hopefully Carolina wins. Hopefully we can be back out here live tonight with less wind, talking about a big win for Carolina.
Yeah, and one thing really quickly here about the place that we're at right now. We said it earlier. You want to be here for the game. If you can't be in the Smith Center, then you need to be here because this is the place. This is where we were going to be.
Yep.
We got those last second tickets. Shout out to Katrina Wiles, by the way. Thank you so much. But we got those last minute tickets. We were going to be here. This place is going to be popping, man.
And they'll be open through the end of the game. Their hours may say 9 p.m. Guys, they're not turning anyone away until that final horn.
Right. And for tonight, look, they are big in the autism awareness community. This is the message that they have on their website. A Clear Path Hospitality located in the vibrant center of Chapel Hill. Our dedication goes beyond offering delicious meals. We are committed to making a meaningful impact in our community. We understand the importance of local connections and are devout in supporting and uplifting those around us through our Town Hall Burger and Beer, Town Hall Grill, and People's Coffee restaurants. A key aspect of our mission is to advocate for autism awareness within our community. We collaborate with former UNC athletes like Armando Bacot, Drake May, as well as current Tar Heels such as RJ Davis and Drake Powell to host community-oriented fundraising events. We aim to create an inviting atmosphere for families and individuals affected by autism. Our mission encompasses more than just culinary excellence. We aspire to cultivate an inclusive environment where everyone feels appreciated. And what they're doing tonight as a part of this is they are hosting a special raffle with signed items for autism awareness. Here's what you need to know. They will announce winners 3 times during the game, 10 minutes into the game, 1 at a halftime, and then 1 during 10 minutes with 10 minutes left in the game. Entries will be $20 per ticket, and winners must be present for the whole game at Town Hall Grill in order to win. Those proceeds will go towards autism awareness. So you're putting your money into something that is definitely worthwhile. The prizes will include basketballs signed from UNC basketball players and Hey Dude shoes signed by Armando Bacot. And also they do have an RJ Davis jersey that is going to be signed as well that you can possibly win. So this is the thing. Yes, it's a great environment to come and watch it at. It also, if you enter the raffle, it goes towards an amazing cause.
Yep.
And every meal that you buy here, a portion of that goes towards an amazing cause. So that's one of the big reasons that we love coming here, because they are inclusive to everybody, and something that they are as passionate about as anything, the autism awareness stuff. It's great to support that whenever we come here. So guys, if you can, please make it out here. Please watch the game here. It would mean a lot for those folks.
Yeah, just want to say thank you one final time to the nice folks here at the Town Hall Grill. David, Jesse, Jimmy, they're fantastic people. The waiting staff is awesome. They've got a great eating menu. They've got an even better drinking menu. So this is a place to be tonight for the Carolina Duke festivities. That is, though, going to wrap up our first ever live broadcast here for the Four Corners podcast. For my co-host, Anthony Pagnotta, we want to say thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels and go to hell, Duke!